Right now, a motorcycle helmet is sitting in an Amazon warehouse with a DOT sticker on the back, a pile of 5-star reviews, and no independent safety testing behind it. Someone will buy that helmet this week. They will strap it on, ride out on their first bike feeling protected. If they crash, that helmet will fail in the worst possible way. But here is what makes this so much worse than a bad product review. The federal government knows this is happening. They have tested the helmets, they have seen the results, and for years they have done almost nothing about it. So let's talk about the recall crisis that nobody in the motorcycle world is paying enough attention to, why that $30 Amazon helmet is basically a fashion accessory with a chin strap, and what you actually need to look for if you want a helmet that does its one job. Let's start with that little dot sticker on the back of your helmet. You've seen it 1,000 times. You bought your lid, you checked for the sticker, you assumed somebody at a government lab tested it, it passed, and you're good to ride. That's how it should work. That is not how it works. The Department of Transportation certification system in the United States runs on a standard called Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard number 218. It was first published in 1973 and took effect in 1974. Unlike basically every other helmet standard on the planet, DOT relies entirely on manufacturer self-certification. There is no independent lab that tests your helmet before it goes on sale. No government inspector examines it. No paperwork proving compliance gets submitted to anyone. The manufacturer simply slaps a DOT sticker on the back and starts shipping. Think about that for a second. A company in Shenzhen can manufacture a helmet out of whatever materials they want, stick a DOT label on it, list it on Amazon for $29, and there is no independent lab and no government inspector standing between that factory floor and your head. Nobody verifies a thing before it goes on sale. You know what does require independent testing before sale? Children's bicycle helmets. Those fall under the Consumer Product Safety Commission, CPSC, which mandates third-party lab certification. So a $50 kid's bike helmet from Target goes through more rigorous pre-sale testing than a motorcycle helmet you'll be wearing at highway speeds. Let that comparison hit you for a second. And it gets better. You can literally buy DOT stickers on Amazon. Just the sticker. Adhesive DOT certification labels sold in bulk that anyone can slap on anything. There is nothing stopping a seller from buying a batch of non-compliant helmets, sticking those labels on, and listing them with a DOT certified badge in the title. The system has no mechanism to catch that before someone buys it. Now, NHTSA, the agency responsible for motorcycle helmet safety, does conduct some post-market testing. They contract with a lab in California called ACT Labs to buy helmets off the shelf and run them through impact tests. But here is the problem. They test roughly 30 to 40 helmet models per year out of an estimated million sold annually in the United States. That is like having a health inspector visit one restaurant in Manhattan and calling the whole borough safe. And the results of those tests? According to a multi-year investigation by Ultimate Motorcycling that analyzed NHTSA's own data from 2014 through August 2023, about 44% of the 269 DOT-labeled helmets tested failed to meet at least one performance requirement of the standard. That includes impact attenuation failures, penetration resistance failures, and chin straps that could not hold the helmet on a test head form. The sample is small relative to the market, but it is NHTSA's own data from their own contracted lab, and the pattern is consistent year after year. In 2018, the failure rate hit 60%. 6 out of every 10 helmets tested that year could not do the one thing a helmet needs to do, and it gets worse. Of the 118 helmets that failed performance testing through 2023, only 15 recalls were ever issued. That is about 13%. The vast majority of failures led to zero consequences for the manufacturer. The maximum civil penalty for selling a non-compliant helmet is around $21,000 per violation under current law, but collecting that from an overseas seller who listed through a shell company on Amazon is nearly impossible. So the system responsible for keeping your brain intact has a 44% failure rate, no enforcement, and has not been meaningfully updated since your parents were in high school. Cool, very reassuring. But maybe you are thinking, okay, that is the system, but the actual products being recalled are probably obscure, no-name brands nobody buys, small-scale stuff. Let's talk about the biggest helmet recall in recent history. In July 2025, the Consumer Product Safety Commission announced recall number 25374, covering approximately 228,000 helmets from 509 and Polaris. These were not $30 Amazon specials. These were snowmobile and off-road helmets priced between $140 and $900 from established brands sold through authorized dealers. The problem was the nylon chin strap webbing on models using Fidlock magnetic buckles may not have been routed correctly through the buckle mechanism. In plain English, the thing holding the helmet to your head could separate on impact. The helmet could fly off. Your head could hit the ground unprotected. This was not theoretical. One rider's helmet actually detached during a crash, resulting in a concussion. The recall expanded 4 separate times between February 2025 and February 2026, as 509 discovered more and more affected models. The Tactical 2.0, the Altitude 2.0, the Delta R3L, the Delta R4, the Mach 3, the Mach 4, the Mach 5 were all manufactured in China, and all potentially compromised. Now here is where the Amazon Marketplace problem gets really ugly. The CPSC identified a wave of Chinese manufactured helmets flooding Amazon, Shein, and Temu that failed mandatory safety standards. But unlike the 509 recall where the company cooperated, most of these sellers just refused to participate. Camzimo helmets were sold on Amazon for $25 to $40 by a Chinese entity doing business as Amzomen, one letter off from the platform they were selling on. These helmets failed impact attenuation, retention system strength, positional stability, and certification labeling. When the CPSC contacted the seller about conducting a recall, they refused. No remedy was offered, nothing. Favoto helmets amounted to about 2,200 units sold on Amazon from 2022 through January 2025. They failed multiple safety standards. In this case, both Favoto and Amazon refused to conduct a recall or offer any remedy to customers. The platform that sold the helmets and the company that made them both said no. FunFitX sold about 85 toddler helmets on Amazon through a Hong Kong trading company. They failed impact attenuation and positional stability. The sellers refused to cooperate with the CPSC. DuYue2 sold about 100 helmets on Shein for $14 to $44. They failed impact attenuation, retention, positional stability, and certification. They refused to cooperate. The one bright spot was Yux Armor, which agreed to recall about 1,780 kids' helmets from Amazon and offered full refunds. One company out of 5 did the right thing. Now a quick clarification because accuracy matters. Those CPSC actions technically cover bicycle and multi-purpose helmets, which fall under CPSC jurisdiction, not motorcycle helmets, which fall under NHTSA. But the marketplace problem is identical. The same pipeline of unverified Chinese manufacturers listing products with fake certification stickers on the same platforms. The same lack of pre-sale verification. The same disappearing act when regulators come knocking. If you are learning something from this, hit that subscribe button. I break down gear safety, riding tips, and industry news every week. Now let's keep going, because the independent testing data is even more damning. In November 2022, CBC Marketplace in Canada ran the most comprehensive investigation into cheap online helmets anyone has done. They purchased motorcycle helmets from third-party sellers on Amazon, eBay, and Walmart. Every single one was advertised as DOT certified. They sent them all to Biokinetics Lab in Ottawa and the Southern Impact Research Center for full safety testing. Every single helmet failed. One helmet purchased from Walmart failed the penetration test entirely. The test striker contacted the head form, meaning a sharp object in a real crash could reach your skull. Chris Withnall, the senior engineer at Biokinetics, put it in terms that should keep you up at night. He said a helmet might look like a motorcycle helmet on the outside, but might not actually behave like one when you need it most. He called it a matter of life and death. All 3 platforms removed the specific listings that got flagged. But the systemic problem, nobody addressed that. Fort9, one of the best motorcycle gear channels out there, ran their own test comparing a $300 Scorpion XOR 710 against a $30 no-name helmet from eBay. The cheap helmet arrived in a literal garbage bag with no box. It was mislabeled about its shell material and smelled strongly of chemical adhesive. The Scorpion passed all 3 drop tests cleanly. The cheap helmet failed all 3. But here is the part that really got people's attention. When they cut open the chin bar of the eBay helmet, there was no expanded polystyrene, called EPS, impact foam, inside. Expanded polystyrene is the dense, crushable foam that absorbs the energy of an impact. That is the entire point of a helmet. Without it, you might as well be wearing a salad bowl. Instead of EPS, they found blue craft foam, the kind you would buy at Michael's to make a school project. It scored 0 out of 9 on their rating system, and that helmet had a DOT sticker on the back. It was listed as DOT certified. Someone gave it 5 stars. The Fort9 video also showed what happens when you cut a cheap helmet versus a real one in cross-section. The real helmet had multiple layers of engineered materials working together, thick EPS foam with varying density zones designed to manage different types of impact energy. The cheap one had a thin plastic shell over minimal padding with visible air gaps where protection should have been. The difference was so obvious, you could spot it from across the room. NHTSA's own research took this a step further. They commissioned an independent lab to test 7 novelty helmet models, the kind that look like little skull caps, and sell for $20 to $40 online. Every single helmet allowed the test striker to fully penetrate the shell. The NHTSA report concluded that all analyses showed a 100% probability of brain injuries and skull fracture, indicating that anyone wearing these helmets would sustain fatal head injuries in a comparable real-world impact. That is not my opinion. That is what the federal agency responsible for motorcycle safety published in their own report. A peer-reviewed study published in Accident Analysis and Prevention in 2017 by researchers led by Rice examined California crash data and found that riders wearing novelty helmets were 1.95 times more likely to die compared to riders in full-face helmets. Nearly double the fatality risk. This brings us to something that should make every rider furious. The DOT standard allows a peak acceleration of 400 G transmitted to the skull during impact testing. 400. Both ECE and Snell cap this at 275 G. Injury biomechanics studies consistently associate impacts above approximately 300 G with a high probability of severe brain injury, and NHTSA funded research found a 50% chance of skull fracture at around 290 G. So the DOT standard allows a helmet to pass while transmitting forces well above the thresholds where serious and fatal injuries become likely. On top of that, DOT does not include a dedicated rotational impact test, something newer standards like ECE 22.06 and Snell M2025 specifically evaluate. Research, including a major European Commission study, found that rotational forces play a primary role in the majority of fatal motorcycle head injuries. There are no visor penetration tests in the DOT standard, no chin bar impact tests, no abrasion resistance testing. The standard that is supposed to protect American riders is missing entire categories of real-world crash forces. Meanwhile, 6,335 motorcyclists were killed on American roads in 2023. That is the highest number ever recorded by NHTSA since they started keeping track in 1975. Motorcyclists are 28 times more likely to die per vehicle mile traveled compared to people in cars. NHTSA estimates that helmets are 37% effective at preventing fatal injuries, but that number assumes the helmet actually works. With a 44% failure rate in the helmets NHTSA has tested, that 37% figure starts to look a lot less comforting. And the data on helmet laws across different states tells you everything you need to know about whether helmets matter at all. In states with universal helmet laws, 89% of fatally injured motorcyclists were wearing helmets. In states without those laws, 51% of riders killed wore no helmet at all. When Kentucky repealed its universal helmet law in 1998, motorcycle deaths jumped 50%. Louisiana repealed theirs in 1999, and fatalities more than doubled. An analysis by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety estimated over 22,000 excess motorcyclist deaths from 1976 to 2022 in states without universal helmet laws. So helmets clearly save lives, but only when they work, and a disturbing number of them do not. So who is responsible for the flood of dangerous helmets? Amazon's third-party sellers account for roughly 60% of all sales on the platform. Both Amazon and Walmart require sellers to ensure products comply with applicable laws. But neither platform independently verifies safety certifications for motorcycle helmets before allowing them to be listed. The process is entirely reactive. A dangerous helmet gets listed, someone buys it, maybe someone gets hurt, a complaint gets filed, and maybe eventually the listing gets pulled. By then, the seller has already moved to a new name and relisted the same product. Go on Amazon right now and search motorcycle helmet, and sort by price low to high. You will find full-face helmets for $25 to $40 from brands you have almost certainly never seen in a motorcycle shop. Many come bundled with free goggles and gloves that no established helmet manufacturer would package together. Almost all of them prominently say DOT approved in the listing title, and almost none of them have been independently verified by anyone. A senior director of product safety at Bell Sports told Consumer Reports something that should stick with you. He said they have never seen a counterfeit or knockoff helmet that performed well in the lab. Not once. Every single one failed. In July 2024, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, CPSC, unanimously ruled that Amazon qualifies as a distributor under the Consumer Product Safety Act, making it legally responsible for hazardous products sold by third-party sellers. Amazon had argued it was merely a logistics provider, like FedEx with a website. The CPSC rejected that argument entirely, finding that Amazon's Fulfilled by Amazon program gives the company far-reaching control over the products it warehouses, promotes, and delivers. That ruling covered carbon monoxide detectors and children's sleepwear, and the legal precedent extends to every product category on the platform. That includes helmets. Think about what that means. For years, Amazon's defense was basically, we are just the middleman, we do not actually sell anything. A federal safety agency looked at the way Amazon stores the product, sets the price visibility, handles the payment, packs the box, and ships it to your door and said, no, you are a distributor and you are responsible. That ruling is still being contested, but the fact that it happened at all signals a major shift in how marketplace liability could work going forward. Consumer Reports ran their own study, purchasing 21 helmets from Amazon, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Shein, Temu, and Walmart. 8 of the 21 did not even have the required CPSC compliance stickers, making them straight up illegal to sell. One helmet from Amazon was recalled shortly after the study was published. So we've established the problem. Now let's talk about what actually works, because there are helmet standards that do their job. ECE 22.06 went into effect for all new helmet models in ECE adhering countries on January 1st, 2024, and it represents a generational leap in helmet safety, where DOT tests at roughly 4 impact points, ECE 22.06 tests at 18. Where DOT uses a single test velocity, ECE uses 3 different speeds, because a helmet optimized only for high-speed impacts can actually be dangerously rigid in low-speed crashes. That matters, because the majority of motorcycle accidents happen at city speeds, not highway speeds. ECE 22.06 includes rotational impact testing using a 45-degree angled anvil, which DOT does not test at all. It tests modular helmets in both open and closed positions. It tests visors with a steel ball at 216 kilometers per hour. It tests helmets with accessories like intercoms and cameras mounted, because those accessories change how impact forces distribute across the shell. And most importantly, every single helmet must pass independent third-party lab testing before it ever reaches a store shelf. Not self-certification, not an honor system. Actual testing by an actual lab that has no financial relationship with the manufacturer. To put it simply, if ECE 22.06 is the final exam, DOT is the participation trophy you get for showing up. Then there is the Snell Memorial Foundation, which released the M2025 standard effective October 2024. Snell is a voluntary certification, meaning manufacturers choose to submit their helmets, but those who do face the toughest testing in the industry. The new M2025 standard adds an oblique impact test that Snell says is more stringent than the corresponding ECE 22.06 test. using a 45-degree anvil faced with 80 grit sandpaper at 8 meters per second. And here is the part that separates Snell from everyone else. After a helmet is certified, Snell regularly purchases random samples from retail stores and tests them again. They test over 3,000 helmets every year to make sure what is being sold still matches what was certified. Every Snell-certified helmet carries a serialized label with a unique barcode that can be traced to a specific model and production run. You can verify any Snell helmet at the Snell Memorial Foundation website. Snell has found counterfeit M2025 labels originating from Malaysia. But here is the key detail. NHTSA has stated they have never found a novelty helmet carrying both a fake DOT sticker and a fake Snell or ANSI label. Counterfeiting one sticker is easy. Counterfeiting two from different organizations is apparently not worth the effort. So getting dual certification, DOT plus Snell or DOT plus ECE, remains the single most reliable indicator that you are wearing a genuinely tested helmet. So how do you protect yourself? Here is what to look for and what to avoid. Weight is the fastest physical indicator. Most novelty and non-compliant helmets weigh around 1 pound or less, far lighter than a real full-face helmet, which typically weighs about 3 pounds, or roughly 1.3 to 1.8 kilograms, depending on the materials. If a full-face helmet feels surprisingly light when you pick it up, something is missing inside. Price is the second signal. Full-face helmets under $50 are almost guaranteed to lack real protection, regardless of what the DOT sticker says. The CBC investigation found that every helmet they purchased from third-party marketplace sellers that was under $80 failed safety testing. Legitimate entry-level helmets from established manufacturers like HJC, Bell, LS2, and Scorpion start around $100 to $150. The best safety per dollar value falls in the $150 to $300 range. Other red flags include packaging in a plain box or a garbage bag instead of branded packaging, missing interior labels showing manufacturer name, model number, and production date, thin soft foam instead of dense EPS foam, flimsy plastic buckles instead of D-rings, and any decorative spikes or protrusions extending from the surface. To verify DOT certification, look for a label permanently affixed to the outside back of the helmet. It should not be a sticker you can easily peel off with your fingernail. It needs to include FMVSS number 218, the word certified, and the manufacturer name and model designation. For Snell, check inside the helmet under the comfort liner for a serialized label with a barcode. You can verify it at the Snell Memorial Foundation website by searching the make, the model, and the size. For ECE, look for a label sewn into the chin strap area with a capital E inside a circle followed by a country code number. If the digits after the E mark begin with 06, it meets the newer ECE 22.06 standard. If it starts with 05, that is the older standard. Here's the good news. You do not have to spend $800 to get a safe helmet. The HJC i10 runs about $130 and carries both DOT and Snell M2025 certification. Getting Snell at that price point is exceptional. The LS2 Stream 2 comes in around $120 with DOT and ECE 22.06 certification, making it one of the cheapest ECE 22.06 helmets available. The Bell Qualifier DLX with MIPS rotational protection runs about $170. The Scorpion XO R420 at around $150 carries both DOT and Snell. And the Icon Airflight at about $230 offers DOT plus ECE 22.06 with a MIPS option. Buy exclusively from authorized motorcycle retailers like Revzilla, Cycle Gear, or Motosport, or directly from manufacturer websites. If you insist on buying from Amazon, use only the manufacturer's official storefront, never a random third-party seller. Avoid AliExpress, Wish, Temu, and eBay entirely for helmets. If someone is offering a name brand helmet at 50% below retail, it is either counterfeit or it fell off a truck, and either way, it is not going on your head. If you already own a helmet and you are suddenly not sure about it, you can search for recalls at the CPSC website, at the NHTSA recall portal, or at recalls.gov. You can report a dangerous helmet at saferproducts.gov or by calling 800-638-2772. Look, the bottom line is this. The system that is supposed to protect motorcycle riders in the United States is fundamentally broken. A 50-year-old self-certification standard with a 44% failure rate, marketplace platforms that profit from sales while refusing to verify safety, and overseas sellers who disappear the second regulators show up. That's not a safety net. That's a theater set designed to look like one. And the really frustrating part? The technology exists to fix this. ECE 22.06 proved you can test helmets at 18 impact points, including rotational forces, and still get them to market at reasonable prices. Snell proved you can run an ongoing retail verification program that catches non-compliant helmets after they are sold. Other countries figured this out. The United States just has not bothered to update a standard that was written when Nixon was still in office. But you do not have to wait for the government to fix this. You can fix it for yourself right now. Spend $100 more, check the certifications, buy from a real retailer, look for that ECE label or that Snell barcode. And if that DOT sticker peels off like a price tag at a yard sale, throw that helmet in the garbage where it belongs. Your brain is the one piece of gear you can't replace. Treat it that way. If this video changed how you think about helmet safety, share it with a riding buddy. Drop a comment telling me what helmet you ride with, and subscribe if you want more content like this that cuts through the marketing and gives you the facts. Ride safe.